Hello my lovely Flosstube friends, welcome back to the channel. A very warm welcomes to you all. Finally, she says. Today I have something special to share with you. I have finally found the time to get round to doing the up close and personal on the newly completed Evening in the Park by Chatelaine. Yay! Finally we're here. This piece has been a labour of love. It has been shared on this channel endlessly. But it has been an absolute journey in itself and a work of art that has taken me through so many moments and memories over the years. It's one of the biggest projects that I've ever worked on. I can't wait to take you through all the stitching, all the beading, everything in between. So grab a cup of tea, get comfy with your own stitching because you're going to need it. Let's dive into this beauty together. So when I say a labour of love, this has been more than a labour of love. I started Evening in the Park on the 28th of December 2016. So yes, that has been a very, very long 8 years. It has been 8 years in the making. It has been an 8-year journey. What makes this piece mean so much to me is all the memories that it brings me of the past 8 years. I was stitching this piece whilst cuddling up with my beloved and now over the rainbow Grandpa Chester, my first dog that you knew of, my loyal boy Fudge, who sat diligently with me whilst I stitched along on this. Then there was the little Coda Bear, the baby boy who we got and lost so soon after getting him. This is also the project that saw me through my mum's stroke. It's seen me through my own health issues with my herniated disc in my neck, my hip surgeries, my hip replacement, all reminders of my life's journey. And in each section of this design, I can say at what point a life event happened. So this piece stirs all sorts of emotions for me when I look at it now and I reflect back. It's emotions like loss, it's emotions that are love, it's emotions that there was laughter, there's tears, sadness, frustration, the list goes on. But with all that said, it brings me back to the here and now with my new little fluffs, Honey and Bonnie. There's probably a bit of Honey and Bonnie fluff in here. How my mum has persevered with her limitations and is still here with me and making the most of life. Whenever I look at this piece, it brings me to a place of happiness and that life is how it should be, full of its twists and turns. This piece does mean so much to me, and now that it is finally completed and I look at it, it makes me so happy because there are so many memories. Who would have thought that a piece that I've stitched on for 8 years would not just make me go, oh, that's so pretty, and oh, I remembered when I had that problem with that stitch. This actually reminds me of everything in my life of the last 8 years. So it has lots of meaning to me. And on reflection, that was never something I thought that would happen. I never thought I would sit and look at a project when it's completed and be able to remember points of my life and at what point what happened. So yeah, very reflective, but it's gonna mean the world to me when it's finally on a wall. But it's not on a wall now. So since it's still not on a wall, I thought now is the perfect time to sit here and do the up close and personal with you of Evening in the Park. So if you don't know what Evening in the Park is, it is a Chatelaine. So Chatelaine designs are known for their intricate detail. They have luxurious silk threads, they have shimmering beads, they have lots of speciality stitches, but they do really make them stand out as heirloom pieces. So Evening in the Park is one of the mystery series that was designed by Martina from Chatelaine. It was originally a year-long mystery project released in 12 parts. So it was almost like a monthly thing. When I purchased it, it was already, it wasn't still in its sale or stitch along, for those that don't know what that stands for. I bought it after the event, a lot after the event, I think. I got the PDF version of the chart directly from Chatelaine, but I also managed to get my hands on a paper copy, which I then purchased from what was the formerly known So and So here in the UK. Having the two together really did help, because the PDF told me some stuff, but the paper chart made some of it make a bit more sense, if that makes any logic. So from the moment I put the first stitch in, I knew this piece was going to be something truly special. But as with many projects, life happened. And here and there throughout the course of its 8-year life in the making, it took a back seat more than once. As you all know, there was many a month where this one did not pop up on my monthly updates. Fast forward to 2024, I made a firm decision and announced it on this channel that 2024 was going to be the year that I finished it. And now here we are in January 2025 with all the stitching completed, all the beading completed, and I nailed it. I finally have a finish, but it was literally finished on the very last day of the year and completed before the 1st of 2025. By the skin of my teeth, let me tell you. One of the things that makes Evening in the Park so spectacular is the variety of stitches that they use. It's not just full cross. This design incorporates a number of specialty stitches. So let's have a little look at what is in this lovely design. So when working on a Chatelaine, especially one of these mystery series, the way they're designed is because they're released month by month. And these are like mandalas, so they go round in a circle. They reflect the same on all sides. Because of that, you tend to start in the middle and slowly work your way out. Now, the thread packs and the beads themselves, when they turn up, are a joy to behold, I must say. One of the nicest parts about working on the Chatelaines is the threads. The threads that come with, or the called for threads. So most of the Chatelaines you will find will have specialty threads and silk threads. Now, that's not to say that that's the only thing you can stitch on. The Evening in the Park does come with a substitute DMC selection for those that want it. There are a few that do not have a substitute, so there is no actual match for the colours. It does make it so that it looks different to the one that you're looking at now, but the material list for the Evening in the Park is an array of threads. There's MPIs, there's Karen water lilies, there's rather a larger list of the Thread Gatherer silk and colours. There's a few of the Gloriana silks. There is one Gloriana Princess Pearl Petite, which is like a little twisted thread. And then there is a little selection of the Rainbow Gallery Petite Treasure Braids. Just looking at the threads without even seeing them stitched is beautiful. Then there is a selection of beads. Now, the beads that the Chatelaine uses is the Delica beads. They've got Delicas, quite a substantial amount of Delicas, and then it has their Swarovski bicones and Swarovski crystal cubes. So we'll have a little look when we get there, but you can see there is lots of different beads twinkling about on here. These are your Delica beads. These are your tiny little ones. These ones here are your bicones. And then if I shove this up just a little bit, these ones here are your crystal cubes. So they're like little squares. As Evening in the Park was designed as a year-long stitch-along, the entire chart is broken down into parts. So you start in the center, and because this is equal on all sides, you start in the center and you basically go round. The centerpiece is almost like its own area, and then from there, wherever you've got sort of the swans and then you've got the corners, you do bit by bit as you go. But in various parts of the design, there is various sections with very clear instructions. It does require a bit of reading, but it is very easy to sort of understand what it is that you're supposed to be doing. It's not like you just get a chart and you have to sort of navigate the waters. So one of the things that you'll notice here on Evening in the Park is where you've got variegated thread. So a lot of these threads here, so that is the same thread going through there, but it's very variegated. So a lot of the silks and the threads that you'll be using have a variegation. Now, to get a nice smooth variegation, you always stitch all of these stitches, you stitch full cross. That's not to say you have to, but if you want a certain type of look where the variegation moves across the design, you will use the cross stitch, as in you wouldn't do all the bottom legs and then come back and do all the top legs, because you'd get a completely different look. So when you're working with the variegated threads specifically, you always stitch these as a full cross, so each individual cross is done separately. The instructions are very clear with how to navigate where there's so much going on. You know, you've got stitches in here, you've got the petite treasure braid, you've got beads, you've got specialty stitches, and it's like, wow, there's a whole lot. The instructions are very clear. Your very first instance is that wherever you are on the design, you stitch all of your cross stitch first. So all of your cross stitch goes in and you do all of that first. Once you've done that, you will then go in and start working with the specialty stitches and the beads. Now, because this is such a big piece, what I did, and I think it's probably quite prudent to, if you're in a position to, if you're working on scroll bars and you have the ability to, I would do my beading as I go, not necessarily in each tiny little piece. So say for instance this square here, I wouldn't necessarily have done that and then done the beading straight away, but by the time you sort of slowly work your way out and then you work to this section, by the time I'd got to here, I would go in and I would bead this whole section, so that the beading then doesn't take you another half a year to actually complete, because there is a lot more beads on here than you realize. Now, a lot of the specialty stitches, so we've got some specialty stitches just here. So these are like your diamond eyelets, and the idea is that you use the thread, and by doing all the cross stitching first, it gives you the hole that you need, or the gap that you're trying to fill with your specialty stitch. And it's very clear in the instructions where they say pull taut. So if you don't pull taut, you won't get like this tiny little hole over here. So if you're looking for like the more lacy effect, or where they're saying you should have a lacy effect, it will tell you to pull taut or not pull taut, as the case may be. But by pulling taut, it opens up so that you have a decorative bottom hole. So it in the instructions, she's quite clear where you're supposed to pull taut and where you're not supposed to pull taut. So here on this one, this is just the center section. When you look at it on a camera overhead, it's a very busy middle, but don't be intimidated by it. Basically, you are looking at cross stitch, which I just did. So I went in and I done all of the cross stitch first. Then I went in and I done my four corners here, here and here. Then I went over with my petite treasure braid. Basically it's a back stitch and then a bigger cross over the top of my cross stitching. And then here we've got again some more little specialty stitches in the middle, and then the rest is just beads. It's really, although they look very intimidating, they're really not as intimidating as you might think. So like I say, because they are broken down into sections, you do these in sections. So you sort of you do this middle bit, and then you work your way to the outside here. And again, you do all of your cross stitch around this section here. And then you'd go in and do your specialty stitches, which there is super clear instructions. She tells you exactly what stitch that's supposed to be. There's a diagram of that stitch for you to follow. But what makes this super easy is the fact that because you've done all of your cross stitching around the area, it leaves you with the hole that you're looking for. So you don't have to guess how far up or how far down the legs need to be. This little gap tells you that. So it's much easier than you might imagine. And then literally you go in after that, once you've done all of that, and then you put your beads in. It's super, super easy. So a lot of the stitches that are used in this particular piece are Algerian eyelets for the texture and for the dimension, and it really does make a difference. There's road stitches in the borders. There are diamond eyelets that create stunning open works. There is waffle stitch, which is in the corners, which adds a lacy effect, and then there's a queen's stitch, which she uses as well for the delicate earth areas. So let me take you in for a closer look, and we can look at the specialty stitches, what parts of the pattern make up this beautiful piece. So the center section, other than this border here around the outside and these bits in the middle, most of this you can see is pretty much cross stitch. So when it comes to the specialty stitches, unless you're told otherwise, and I'm pretty sure that if my memory serves me right, at no point did she tell me to do more than one strand. So whenever you're doing specialty stitches, I'm pretty sure all the way through this, it is one strand, never two strands. But it's very clear on the instructions. She'll tell you how many strands you need to use for the specialty stitches. Again, this border here, you can see it's basically a outline of cross stitch. So you do all this cross stitching, which then leaves you these gaps to do these lovely specialty stitches in the middle. But again, you've got a diagram that shows you how to do it, and literally once you've done the first one or two, you blast through these, and then there's some areas that you leave blank for your beads at the end. It's really, really easy and really, really lovely. This section here, I know that when I stitched this, there was a variation. I think there was 2 different variants of how you stitched this bit. This is how I stitched mine. Again, there was a pattern, there was a design of how you do it to make this lovely like weaved look. But again, there is an outline, so you knew exactly where you needed to do it. And again, here there's these 3 specialty stitches in each of these sections, and this is where she's saying pull taut to get this lovely little hole, so you get like a lacy look. If you don't pull taut, you don't get the hole. You would just have like the legs. But she tells you where you should be expecting to have these bigger holes. So in each section that you go through on the instructions, it will say things like do all cross stitch first, then you do all of your half stitch, then you do your specialty stitches. That's the order of things. So you can see here, so if I bring you down, we'll go down here. So in this section here, you've got full cross, which is all of this, and then you'll notice that the petite treasure braid is a half cross. So then you go in and do all of your half cross, and then that leaves you all your spaces for all your beads, and the same with the specialty stitches. So it's very, very clear how you do this. Now I'm going to whiz up the other way so that it's flipped the right way. So if we come up to this section here, you can see this is the waves, and then we've got our lovely swan. And, you know, and you stitch this bit, and then you stitch this another 3 times. One on there, one to the right, one to the left, and one at the bottom. So it gets quite repetitive. But the beauty of that is once you've nailed it once, it's very easy to just do the other 3. Now, a lot of these stitches are very clear as to what they are and where they are. Again, these, you went in, you stitched all of these borders around these sections, which then leave you the gaps that you need to do your filling in. Now, there's various different stitches just in this section alone. You've got some satin stitch up here. You've got some long stitch here. You've got some queen stitch. You've got a whole array of stitches. The flowers, they're done with 1 ply in this section. And they're a combination of a diamond eyelet on the top, which is this bit up here, followed by a partial Jessica crescent at the bottom. So that's what this bit is here. So basically that is almost like 1 part of the stitch. You just do loads and loads of single strands into one hole across all of these. And then the next stitch is literally this one that crisscrosses and comes across, and you can see how it goes. It's very, very easy, but it's broken down so that it's much easier to do than you might think. The center flowers, which is these ones here, it's probably not my best effort, that one. This one actually came out better, but this is what I mean. It doesn't matter that they don't look absolutely perfect. I'm quite all right with that because it's stitched. They're never going to look the same. So these ones, so the center of these flowers are a diamond eyelet topped with, it's one detached lazy daisy. That's all that is. And you can practice these on a separate bit of fabric, but I've never done any half of these stitches before, and I didn't. I just rocked along. It really wasn't that hard. The earth is made with the queen stitch, which is 1 ply, which is supposed to look like a, I don't know, almost like an oval, but then it doesn't. So it's a lovely little stitch, and it's a combination of vertical long stitches which are forced into their place by tiny horizontal tacking stitches. That's how you make those. This up here is the flower. The flower is basically like a satin stitch. So you literally you're just stitching, and you can see there's a line there and there's a line there. This one goes that way. This one is just straight down satin stitch, and this one comes in like that, and then it's just surrounded by like a long stitch there. That's it. That's as intricate as this stuff gets. They're very, very pretty stitches once you've done one once, and it's like, actually that was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. And then again, this is just some back stitch along here, and then you've got your beads just here. She gives you clear instructions. So for instance, like with this satin stitch here, she does say work the flower in satin stitch and take care that the thread is not twisted. So she'll tell you what you need to be looking for, where you need to be looking for it. I mean, mine are far from perfect, but I'm fine with that because flowers are not perfect. So I'm fine with all of that. And then finally on these sections, you work the snowflakes, which is these, just here. So literally this is just almost like back stitch, and then it's just got beads added on the ends. But it is an absolutely beautiful design, and with the specialty stitches is what makes it really pop. I think one of the biggest, one of the most, I say complicated, it was far from complicated, stitch is this one here, which is a waffle stitch. It's like a woven basket. So basically it is the basket or the flower pot that the trees go in. And this literally is just a vertical spoke. This is one that does have 3 plies. So it's got 3 plies of thread, so it makes it nice and puffy. And literally all you do is you do your vertical strips coming down here, and then you start weaving under and over the vertical strips, making horizontal weaves, and you go up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, and that's what creates this beautiful stitch here. And at first I was a little intimidated just looking at it, but actually when I read the instructions and I looked at the diagram and I got going on it, I was like, that's really not as hard as I thought it was going to be. It was actually a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. There's some dog fluff there, look. Could have been a bit of any of my little fluffs there. So yeah, these stitches are much simpler than you think. They look intimidating, is all it is. So you do this section here, and then you've got your swans. The swans basically are full cross. There's a little bit of back stitching in there. There was supposed to be some back stitching that goes round, I think, the wings here. I found that I couldn't really see it. The colour didn't pop. Now maybe just because it was on my colour fabric that I chose, but I didn't bother putting it in. I don't think the swans needed it, but it is on there. I just chose not to do it. That was my personal preference. So once you've done this section, so you've done your centre, you do these borders, you then go and you do all of your swans. So you've got your 4 swans. Just quickly whiz you up. I don't want to make you sick because it does make you sick. Same again on the bottom, left and right. Once you get past that section, you are then working on the corners, she says, on these corners here. Again, everything is 4 times. So everything you do, you're going to do 4 times over. And in this section here, you just have a variety of Algerian eyelets. That's all they are. You've got large ones, which are worked over 6 threads. So when we say they're worked over 6 threads, so here's one of the large ones here. So it's worked over 6 threads. And you can see, because once you go in and you do all of your full cross, you do all your crosses, you do all of that first. Once you've done that, you can see you've got a defined hole there. So you don't even need to know that it's over 6. The only difference you need to know is that a big space or is that a little space? Now, the only difference is where you've got these ones here. But again, you have a full diagram for this that shows you everything that you need to know. It tells you exactly where you should be expecting to have this stitch. And then it actually depicts it all for you. So it's not like you've got to guess what this is. But like I say, so you've got a number of large Algerian eyelets which are worked over 6 threads, and it's worked into every second intersection. So you can see that it's basically across as if you was working over 2 standard. But then you've got other ones which are like this one, I believe. Yes, this one, which is worked into every single intersection, every single hole. That just makes it so that it looks bigger and fatter. This just makes it so that it's not quite so covered. And again, all of these you pull taut to make this lovely lacy effect, this lovely lacy hole in the middle of all of these specialty stitches. All the eyelets that are using the pearl thread are worked into every second hole, and then all the eyelets use a normal thread, they're into each hole. So these little ones are a normal thread, so they go into each hole. Anything with one of these pearly looking threads goes into every other hole. I mean, they're much easier than you think, and the fact that you've got all of the spaces that you need, you can see exactly where your beads need to go, so you'll end up with like a space for a bead. These are basically 4 little specialty stitches just in a big square. It's super easy. And you know what, I've just noticed something, and I don't know if you have. I'm going to need to check that, but I think we've got a rogue missing stitch there. I'm quite pleased we did this video, because otherwise I wouldn't know that was there. I need to see what that is. I think it's a missing bead is what I think it is. I'll need to check, but there we go. I'm sitting here saying it's finished. It's obviously not 100% finished because we're missing a stitch there. Ah, that makes me feel better. I will never have to look at this going, oh no, look, I missed it, once it's behind glass. So, and the only other thing with these stitches is the different types. So for each different stitch here is a different type of thread. So I think in this section here, these specialty stitches, so you've got 1 there, 1 there, you've got 4 there, you've got 4 there, you've got 1 there, you've got these ones here, and then you've got some that are here. There's quite a few specialty stitches, but again, like I say, there's all these gaps, but there's literally, let me see, you've got an MPI thread in there, you've got a water lilies thread in there, you've got a petite pearl princess in there, and you've got a silken colour in there. So there's like 4 different colours of thread that are used just in these sections. But again, once you've sussed this bit out, you're then just going on to do it another 3 times. Super, super easy, people. Now, in these borders up here, again, so you do your corners, you would do your cross stitch in here. Again, there's more beads in these sections here. There's also these specialty stitches here. So these are basically rice stitches that are created with 2 ply. And then you add the back stitch around the outer border afterwards. But again, great instructions. Diagrams for every specialty stitch. So you don't get stuck. You don't get lost. You don't get stuck. It's not like someone's going to say, do a rice stitch, and you're like, I have no idea where to start with this. So this is all your rice stitch across here. And like I say, because there's so many of them, once you've sort of done 1 or 2 of them, it's like, actually, I'm starting to get a groove on this. And you don't even need to refer to the diagram anymore, because you just carry on. But if you are one of those people that just needs to have a diagram, you just have the diagram next to you and just work the legs exactly as it says on the diagram. It's that easy. And you can see here where the variegated thread is being used. So this is 1 thread, but they're all slightly changing colour. So again, this is the look that you get with a variegated thread. It's just that they naturally fade in and out to each other. Whereas if you was to go with the DMC conversion, you would have, it would be 1 colour across there. Then you've got some petite treasure braid just here. Again, this is just like a back stitch. So you're just following the chart for this. And then there's some beads in these sections in between. These are beautiful, these bicones. They are the most stunning bicones ever. They are the, when I first saw them, I'm like, they can't be for this chart. They don't look like they go well, but they actually do. They actually do. They're beautiful. Love, love. So then once you've done all of your corners, now as you'll know when you watched me stitch this, I didn't necessarily do it in the correct order because I got bored after doing 1 or 2 corners, so I'd go on and do something else. But there's nothing to say you can't do that. But if you're the sort of person that isn't comfortable to have to go and revisit these stitches to re-grasp them, especially when it takes 8 years to do it, my advice would be, if you've learnt these stitches here and you know you've mastered the art of all of this, do the other 3 corners, because while it's all very fresh in your mind, you won't need to refer back to your instructions because you already got it fresh in your mind how to do these stitches. That's just me. But if you're the sort of person that once you learn a new stitch, regardless of whether you use that stitch again for another 3 or 4 months, you're going to remember how to do it, then by all means, you know, do a corner and then go off and do something else, just so that you don't get bogged down doing the same thing. But note to self for me for next time, I will persevere and stay in lane. If it says do all 4 of these, I will do all 4 of these. Because the problem that I found is it was so long after I did this corner that I went and done another corner, and I had to revisit all the instructions all over again and then get it right in my head as to which ones were what stitches and which ones used what threads. So yeah, but it's not complicated. It just requires reading. I don't have the patience for that. And again, more beads just here. So then from there, the chart then says, or the pattern then says that you go on to do the lovely gates. Now, the gates are super easy. They're super easy, but believe it or not, I think I struggled more with this than I did any other part of this design. And it is nothing but cross stitch. It's cross stitch, it's full crosses all the way through. But because it's using a variegated thread, you have to stitch each stitch individually. And then you're using a petite treasure braid to go in and put that in. And then you've got some beads here. But other than that, the gates are easy. There's nothing hard on the gates. And then again at the top, you've got the lovely bicones. And then up here, I nearly missed these out because on my chart, on my first chart that I got, these weren't showing. But then actually, when I looked at the PDF, they were showing. So the paper version that I had didn't have this on. And then when I looked online, I did see that that is on there. So I decided to go in and put that in. But that, I think that was optional. I didn't need to do it if I didn't want to. Then we come on to the borders. So the borders, again, this is easy stitching. This is basically just full cross. You just go in and you've got one colour, and then you go back in and you do the lighter blue colour. And again, all variegated, so each stitch just needs to be stitched individually. Now, you will all know that probably the bane of my life was these bad boys. These got the better of me, but the beauty of this piece is, had I not had the support from fellow cross stitchers that helped me bash out a lot of these trees, I'm not sure that we would be where we are now. I wouldn't be showing you the finish, let's put it like that. So with a lot of help from a lot of others, we managed to do the trees. Now the trees, you'll notice that none of my trees really look the same. The only ones that might look the same is the ones that other people did, because this back stitch here, just, I got fed up with that, and I'm like, well, a tree doesn't necessarily always look the same, so all my trees are going to look a bit different. But the actual cross stitch of the trees was fine. It was just doing all of this back stitch. But there is a lot of trees to get through. The lanterns didn't bother me. I don't know why. The lanterns didn't faze me. Now what is great about the lanterns and what makes it really pop, I think, is the use of the half cross in the opposite directions to make it look like a lantern. So that's all full cross in the middle here. This is all full cross. The top up here is all full cross. And then literally this is just one leg going in one direction, one leg going the other direction, and it gives this beautiful, beautiful look. And you can see that it slightly overlaps into the gate, but once you've got the gate in situ, you've got, you know exactly where these need to go. So again, it's so well done. The snow, that got a bit tiresome. The snow, you've got the white, and you know how much I hate stitching on white, and then you've got the petite treasure braid to give it extra sparkle, and then you've got your beads on top of that. But there is a lot of trees and lanterns, and like I say, the lanterns were easy. I didn't have a problem with the lanterns, but the trees, thank you so much to all of those gorgeous people that helped me do my trees. I'm gonna have to get a list of names and do sort of a credit to them. Let me zoom you back out now that we've looked at all of these gorgeous stitches. So if it hadn't have been for all of the support that I got, this really wouldn't be where we're at now. I would say, I think the last tree that I did was probably this one, possibly. And then all of these trees. So each one of these trees along the bottom, she says, each one of these trees along the bottom has been stitched by somebody else. Each one of these trees, right the way up to here. So I did these trees. So I did all the top trees. I persevered with these ones. So we did all of these. But then by the time I'd got the whole top half done and we was working on the bottom half here, I would say from that tree onwards, there is a tree that has been lovingly stitched by a fellow cross stitcher. And for those of you that know who you are, it would be lovely to know if you can remember which tree you stitched, so that I can know which one was yours. I know one or two of them. I know one or two who did what ones, but there are a few that I don't know whose tree is whose. So yeah, I need to find out whose tree is whose. But it is done, people. She says. I say it's done. Apart from this little roguey stitch here, which I don't even know how I managed to miss that. But it's a good job that I did this video, because it has made it so that I can see and I don't miss it, and it's not going to be one of those things that I'm going to be looking at for the rest of my life going, I can't believe I didn't see that. See, it's a good thing I did this video. So like I say, this piece with all of its specialty stitches, the stitches add so much personality, and it makes it more than cross stitch piece. It's beautiful. And as for the silks, let's talk about silks. Chatelaine designs are famous for the use of luxury silks. So the Karen water lilies, the Glorianas, the thread gatherers, and the needlepoint, or MPI for those that don't know. The colours blending that you get with these silks are just breathtaking, as you can see. Like this is exactly what I'm talking about. And again, in the lanterns, it's not a big variegant, but if you look at that section there, the middle of this lantern looks like it's darker and is fading out. That is the variegation, and especially in the lanterns and in the trees. The variegation in the silk threads means you do have to stitch each cross fully instead of doing the usual single strand and then coming back, but it helps maintain the soft transition. So it gives you like that soft change in color, and gives you like shading, which you wouldn't get if you converted this to a DMC alternative or substitute. It would look a lot different, and that's the reason that you do each individual stitch. This is one thread. This color here is one thread, and you can see how it variegates all the way through these different colors. And by stitching individual stitches at a time, this is how it does that. It just makes it look, it makes it pop. But had that been one single color, I personally, I mean, not that I would have that much of a problem with it, but the fact that it goes from one color, fades and goes into another color, is what I think makes this look amazing and stand out so well. For the beading, oh, the beading. This piece is absolutely encrusted with beads, and it truly makes it sparkle. I'm not sure that the camera actually does the sparkle justice, but it has so much in it that it twinkles in daylight. Those delicate beads, because they're delicate beads, they've got sort of a twinkle effect to them. You've got the Swarovski crystals. When I did my beading, I made sure that I went through my beads in two directions, so they all sat flat. I made sure that they were, if you wanted them so that they were on a diagonal like that, you would just do from one corner to the other. I would go through twice to make sure that they sit down nicely, because the last thing you want is for one of your beads to pop off, because once one pops off, I'll guarantee you'll have more pop off. But the beading, basically, they've been gone through twice in each direction, which is what makes them stay on nice and firm. And once you've decided how you're going to do your beading, whether you're just going through them once or whether you're going to go through them twice, will define whether you end up with your beads sitting on a diagonal or not. But I personally would make my decision and stick with it. Don't try and go back. But adding the beading with the stitching really enhances the architecture of the design. I think that's what really makes this stand out. When I was doing the beading, I was using a very thin beading needle. I couldn't get away with just sort of like a 28 embroidery needle, which you can in other designs. Because you're using the Delica beads, I found that some of the time I could get away with a size 28 embroidery needle. Most of the time it was a beading needle. I didn't use Nymo thread, I used the invisible thread, but it does actually say you can use Nymo thread. So of course, if you prefer to be able to see what it is that you're trying to pin down your with, Nymo thread would be your choice. And like I say, to attach them securely, make sure that they sit neatly. Sew in the beads in the same direction, either all horizontally or all vertically. It does make a huge difference as to how they lay. Now, all of that said, no project this big comes without its challenges. The sheer size, this is 279 by 279. This is a big piece, especially with all of those specialty stitches. The silk can be delicate, it can tangle easily, so you have to work slowly and carefully, and don't use really long lengths is my next tip. Keep track of your colours. So with so many different silk shades, you need to make sure that you don't mix them up or take them out of the little baggies and then forget to put them back in, because there is a lot of them. I think my next biggest tip is the beading. The beading does take time. It's not a quick process, but it is so worth it when you see the final sparkles. As you can, well, I can see them. I'm not sure that you can see, but yeah. The beading may take a lot of time, but that was why I decided to do most of my beading as I went. And I'm very pleased that I did, because even though I did it as I went, I still had a lot of beading to do at the end when I was doing around this edge and these gates. So yeah, note to self, bead as you go. If you can and you're not using Q snaps for this, then I would definitely bead as I go. But despite all that, I absolutely loved every moment spent on this piece. And the final result is beyond what I could have hoped for. I'll be honest, I'm not even sure that I ever thought that this would get finished. But here it is. Here it is, evening in the park in all its glory. This piece has been such a journey. I'm beyond proud. I'm elated to finally be at that finish line. It has tested my patience on occasion, my perseverance, and my stitching skills. But it has also been one of those most rewarding projects that I've ever worked on. It's taught me that there's nothing that you can't do if you turn your hand to it. With clear instructions, some thread, and some patience, you will get there. So now the big question for me is, how am I going to frame it? So I need to decide on the frame for this piece. I'm undecided. I will speak to the framer and see what they suggest, but yeah. If anyone's got any, ideas, share them with me in the comments below, because I always love to hear what everyone else thinks. You've had so much input into this project that I think it's only right that you have input into the frame. I'm not sure whether to keep the frame simple or actually make the frame really ornate. But I'm thinking simple so that your eye gets drawn to the stitches. But let me know what you think. So yeah, she's done. She's finished, all barring that one little stitch that we've just found, but everything is where it should be. Also, let me know, have you stitched a Chatelaine design, and if so, which one? I do have Frosty Knot Garden, which is going to come out to play in September, which has already got a very, very small start. But I do also have the Sleeping Beauty that's waiting in the wings, fully kitted. So, I'm going to have to try and show some restraint, because now I've finished this one, it's like, it's the same as anything. You want all the new things out, don't you? And the fact that I've got through this, I'm like, yay, let's do another one. So I'm having to hold myself back. But what can I say, people? I am so thrilled to be able to be sharing the final piece with you and everything that went into it. Love, blood, sweat and tears and all of that jazz, along with support and help from a number of other stitchers just to get this over the finish line. So a huge thank you to all of you that have helped me persevere when I haven't wanted to, for the people that have actually got their handiwork in the stitching. I thank you to the bottom of my heart. So thank you all so much for watching and for sharing in this journey with me. Your support and encouragement has meant the world. I don't think you realise how much. And I love hearing your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future updates. Until next time, people, happy stitching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye for now.